It's Saturday, and you know what that means. Welcome everyone to another episode of Stan Hansen Saturday. This is episode number 10, and this week we look back at Stan Hansen invading World Championship Wrestling. This was in between the time that they were still referring to themselves between WCW and NWA, because this show is actually referred to as NWA Pro at this point in time. This match is from May 26, 1990, as Stan Hansen would take on Paul Drake. And poor Mr. Drake had very little going on in this match. But before we get to that match, we have Jim Cornette doing the introduction to the segment. As he mentioned, Stan Hansen has made his way to the NWA. He then throws it to an interview that Jim Ross conducted with Stan Hansen. Ross talks about Stan Hansen being a great athlete out of West Texas State University, and that he's been exiled from wrestling in the United States. Stan Hansen comes out chewing tobacco and slamming his bull rope onto the floor. Ross asks him where he's been, and Hansen tells him that he's been in a third world country with the Peace Corps, fighting and representing the U.S. and the state of Texas. He says that he doesn't wrestle in the U.S. because promoters want guys who say yes sir, and he's not a yes sir kind of guy. He does what he wants overseas, but he's back in the NWA, and says all the wrestlers have to deal with him now. Ross then asks him why he's back in the U.S., and Hansen says that it is due to the statute of limitations, and claims they barred him from wrestling in the U.S. He then claims promoters took food from his table, but says he's back because there are laws that protect him now. He also says people are stealing his move, the Lariat, but he has perfected it, and he's going to use it on all of his opponents. After the interview, they go to Stan Hansen's match against Paul Drake. Lance Russell and Michael Hayes are on commentary. Lance Russell points out the size differential between the two. Hansen chops and elbows Drake and knocks him down. A big kick to Drake's chest, followed by Hansen kicking Drake out of the ring. Stan Hansen screams in the ring. Hansen then brings Drake back into the ring with a suplex, but rather than actually completing the suplex, he just tosses him down to the mat. That is then followed by a few elbow drops on Drake. He then refuses to pin Drake. Stan Hansen then follows with a knee lift, and even more knee lifts on poor Paul Drake. Some hard chops by Stan Hansen. He then follows that up by stomping on Paul Drake. The referee warns Stan Hansen. Hansen then chokes Drake below the rope. Hayes asks what Luger and Sting must be thinking about seeing Stan Hansen now in the NWA. Or WCW, whichever the two you want to call it at this point in time. More kicks by Hansen, and he motions for the Lariat. The crowd erupts. The announcers get excited as Stan Hansen is about to use his finisher. He whips Drake into the ropes and catches him with a Lariat. He follows that up with an elbow drop and gets the pin. Hansen then hog-ties Paul Drake. That is probably the highlight of this as he decides to do this. Michael Hayes starts to laugh and ask if anyone could imagine him doing that to Rick Steiner. And then they mention, what about Sting? And the video ends. This is a very memorable squash. I thought this was fun. Like I said in previous video episodes where I've talked about Hansen squash matches, they're just as entertaining as his heavyweight championship matches, or his big rivalry matches. His matches against jobbers are always fun to watch, and this was no exception. I thought it was interesting that this was really the time where the NWA was transitioning into being called World Championship Wrestling more frequently, and so you have a lot of this. One person would call it the NWA, and another person would call it WCW, but here they brought in Stan Hansen, and I thought that was really cool. A definite highlight of this was the interview leading up to this. Stan Hansen had tobacco just flowing all over his lower lip, his mouth, his chin, all over the place as he screamed about how he was being mistreated by United States promoters, and I thought that was awesome. This is definitely something you should watch, and it's actually available on YouTube. I posted a link on the description for everyone to check that out. definitely a fun match to watch. Really good squash. So be sure to subscribe to the Retro Wrestling YouTube channel. And remember, every Saturday we celebrate by recapping a Stan Hansen match. So long, everyone.